Hello and welcome. My name is Scott Hayden. I'm the Digital Innovation Specialist at Basingstoke College of Technology, and this is the fourth of 4 Apple Regional Training Centre events that we are creating for Apple this academic year. This one is going to be focusing on teaching maths with iPads.
Hello everyone, I'm Joe Williams. I'm a lecturer in maths at an FE college in Basingstoke, so it's in the south of England. I have a previous background in lecturing in music technology, media, games and computer science as well. I've always tried to incorporate innovation from those industries and those sectors and with the technology, and sort of trying to incorporate that into my teaching practice, and especially from a perspective of teaching GCSE maths.
So at Basingstoke College of Technology, we help all subjects to use teaching, learning and assessments with technology woven and baked within it, really. It has to be something that enhances pedagogy, enhances learning. That's really crucial to us. And we help all subjects at our, as Joe says, vocational college in the southeast of England. We can help all English schools and colleges with free peer-to-peer, teacher-to-teacher support if you get in touch with us. So please get in touch with the event by email or message in the chat, and we'll be able to get in touch with you to support you. So the Regional Training Centre events from September will be live and in person. So we'll be able to meet up in real life, imagine that, and have you at the college to work with us using iPads, Apple technology, but also other tech. We're pretty agnostic in what we use at the college, using Google as our default, but also Microsoft and Apple tools and Adobe as well. So we can show you how we use different tools. We'll focus on Apple, of course, as it's an Apple RTC event from September. So we look forward to having you at the college. So for this session, if you want to play along, you need to have your iPad, and you need to, thank you, Joe, and you need to, if you're lucky enough, have an Apple Pencil, which I appreciate. People might not have, but Joe will make hopefully an interesting argument as to why you might consider it.
Thank you very much, Scott. So we're going to look at iPads. We're going to look at a particular app on the iPad, which is Jamboard, which is a Google app. And like Scott said, I'm going to try to sort of incorporate it. So we're using the Apple Pencil as well, which has been a godsend during lockdown. Right, so teaching maths with an iPad. So today I'm going to demonstrate how the maths team at BCoT, so not just myself, how myself and the rest of the team here have used tools such as Jamboard and the Apple Pencil as well to create engaging, live, synchronous lessons for GCSE students over the past year. Obviously, we've been in lockdown in Britain for quite a large part of the year. So there's been a lot of remote learning, and I'm happy to say that the college where myself and Scott work has kept lessons going on throughout almost all of that time. And so with that, we've had to sort of adapt and to learn how to use new tools with the learners. So I'll share how we did adopt some of those tools to suit ours, and like I said, and the learners' needs as well. This includes how we differentiated different tools and different forms of applications, and to provide opportunities to develop learners' own independent digital study skills. And like I said, and the staff as well. Main focus of this is just sort of how we overcame various issues during remote learning. Right, so the sort of first perspective I'm going to go into detail for is going to be from a teaching perspective. However, later on, I will sort of go over how Jamboard and the sort of tools I mentioned as well can be quite useful for learners as well. So firstly, you can open a Jamboard in a variety of different ways. You can create a Google account, which in itself is free, and get access to Jamboard immediately. So it's just another tool that you can get on the Google suite, like Google Docs and Google Slides and so on. And you can access your Jamboards in a similar vein to how you would access files that are saved on an iCloud or saved on a Google Drive or something like that. These are automatically saved files that can be closed and reopened at any moment without losing any of your previous work, which obviously is very, very useful in sort of current climate. I can share these ideas and these jams that I've made with the rest of the teaching team, as well as my students as well. And all of that is seamless. It's so easy to do it, to share. Especially within the college where we work. All of our students have Google accounts. Their sort of primary account that they open here is a Google account, as well as staff as well. So everything's very easy to ping across to each other, can share ideas and innovations and stuff like that. Okay, so I do have the Jamboard app downloaded on the iPad that I'm going to be using today, and I can automatically sync that with Jamboard that I could have on a PC or on a MacBook or something along those lines. Often, when teaching remotely using a Jamboard on an iPad, like I just said, we'd open the Jam through the streaming teaching platform, Google Meet, which is what we are using at the moment, which seamlessly synchronizes and works well with an iPad. I would have my Meet video streaming a lesson live on my MacBook. That is also connected to a Jamboard that is on both the iPad that I've got here as well as my MacBook. Okay, and everything I would do on my iPad would also sort of come up on my MacBook at the same time as well. So like I said, it does all seamlessly synchronize with one another to make this stuff get through very, very quickly. So, you're not having to worry about that sort of technology side whilst you're teaching and sort of, trying to control the online environment with your learners. As with most applications and devices made for and through Apple, these all connect with absolute ease, and it's straightforward as well to do it. Like I said, it's very intuitive using this kind of technology. But you don't need to have a MacBook, and to be honest, you don't need to have an iPad. You could do it on any other form of tablet or Windows PC or whatever. Just it's a little bit harder just to connect stuff, obviously, when you're using devices from different companies and stuff. But if you are using a PC and an iPad, just make sure that everything's connected on the same Wi-Fi. Otherwise, it might get a bit difficult. Right, so the jam you pick can be a new jam or one that you prepared earlier. I do quite like that. So you can start afresh if you've got a classroom and you put a bit of working out on a Jamboard, or maybe you prepared something early with some questions you've got ready for your students. That can all be ready to go straight away. The only view sort of thing is quite useful, is that you can send like a view version to your students so they can't read and write themselves. So you can have like a read option, so they can click on that and they can't edit it. Maybe it's got a formula on there, or it's got some questions that you might want to see in a bit of paper or in a Google Doc or something else that you have on the computer, or you might want them to be able to read it, so for them to write on the Jamboard themselves as well. And don't forget, this can all be individualized, so a learner could have just their own sort of slide on the Jamboard that just they can see, or me and them as well. So obviously I can assess and make sure that they're doing their work and that it's going all right for them if they need a hand of it. Or we can share that with the rest of the class as well, so that the class can see what their peers are doing, but I'll get onto that a little bit more later. So here's some examples of Jamboards that learners have made and that learners have been writing on. So you can see they've been answering some questions there, or in the process of working out a product to prime question, and we've got a solve question over there. So this can all be done on a phone, so they could have it just on their actual phone. They could have a Jamboard on the phone and sort of write on there. They could have it on an iPad or any other type of tablet device, or a laptop or a PC. You get the idea. It works on anything that has an internet connection. So convenient for the classroom, basically, and whatever classroom you've got, whatever school or college, wherever you work at, or whether you're working from home. Obviously, this works really well for remote learning as well, where all of our learners have different equipment at home, and you can use like those images there. You could use a mouse for it. You could use a finger, a stylus, pen, anything like that. It all works pretty well for it. You can also use it in combination to jam live, so to say. So as you can see there in those images, I've got a question that I've given to the rest of the class, and I've started to work through it with them as well. So I'd have it on my teaching PC within the classroom, as well as on the whiteboard that you've got here, and my iPad. And everything I'm doing is all synced up, so it just streams across instantly as well. So no longer do you have to be stationary at the board. I could walk around the classroom with the iPad whilst editing it and contributing to it whilst it's coming up on the class, and students can do the same as well. Like I mentioned earlier, the students could have their own slides on there, so I could go to the next slide and then show a student working through it as well, see what answer they got, see they're working out for how they did it as well. It's a really good way of sharing best practice amongst the peers for their students. It does work really well with that, and it does build confidence as well. And I say it's very inclusive, because somebody really doesn't want me to show it, or maybe someone's quite shy, doesn't always put their hand up or want to answer questions or ask questions themselves. I can look through, I can see they've done their maths correctly, so therefore I can just ping it up onto the board and say, you know, look what the student's done, really good work. They've got all their working out there, done superbly well. So it's very good for that, for boosting confidence, especially maths confidence as well, has really helped with that. So a good highlight of the year, and one of my favorite functions is the ability to save your jam as well. So say I've gone through with class and we've gone for a starter activity, or we've done a bit of an exam paper, which you can also export into Jamboard and present on the board. I can save that at the end. So I could go, okay, you know, you guys have done some really good work today, and we can look at it in the future. So not only am I sort of cementing their confidence, I'm sort of showing them, I'm evidencing it so that they can see it in the future. So it does help as well with them getting socially adapted into the group, as well as using technology, as well as using maths as well. So it is nice, and I can use that with a different class maybe to share best practice. So I can say, oh, you know, this other class managed to do this. Can we do anything better than that? Can we top what they did? Can we get further in these questions? This is the working out we use for that particular question, so on and so on. It does work really well for that. And like my example here, the image we have on the right there, this worked really well for social distancing once we were back in the classroom this year. So for example, you know, in normal times, I would get learners to come over, maybe write on the board if they've got the answer to the question, or at least an element of it, or a formula or a method or something like that. But what we can do now instead is from their MacBooks or whatever devices they've got within the classroom, I can ping it straight onto the whiteboard so we can see what working out that they themselves have done. So therefore, you know, adhering to socially distancing and so on. So that has worked really well. Right, for some activities, we give all the learners the same questions and template, like you can see in the image here. They each have their own allocated slide, all for the same questions. So you can share these individually, like I mentioned earlier, so they can't copy each other, so they can only see their own work, or you could share it across the class. So each person will have their own slides. So learner one's got slide one, learner two's got slide two, so on and so on. There's obvious pros and cons to both options for that. So all depends on the learning environment that you've created within your classroom. We've often used this function as a starter activity, and I quite enjoy that learners can see each other's work. I felt that this function helped some of my quieter learners get peer-to-peer praise that, in other words, they may not have had access to before in a normal sort of learning environment where everyone's just working from their paper workbook or something like that. For example, we've all had a learner who works hard but won't answer many questions. They won't want to ask many questions as well, or having their work shared with others. This is a really good means of doing that. And like I said before, increasing their confidence in maths and sort of demonstrating their ability as well. And that can really make all the difference between someone really believing that they're going to get there, you know, go up a grade, go up 2 grades or something like that. It's just having that confidence. So use technology, if we can do it through that means, it's a really good way of doing it. And it's all about trying to create, you know, the best sort of inclusive environment that you can create. So here's an example of one of those starters I was just showed you before and talking about earlier. So this learner has answered all of the questions from what I can see. Yeah, I've obviously picked this one because all of the answers are correct. I'm pretty sure they are, at least anyway. Depending on which device learners are using, you know, they could maybe type in a text box if they'd like to, or they could, you know, have just do it with their finger. They could just write on it with their finger like so, or use a stylus pen or whatever. Lots of different ways you can access, and you can write on a Jamboard depending on what equipment you've got at your college or school or so on. But like I said, the Apple Pencil is definitely the best way of doing it because it's the easiest way of doing it, and the easiness is usually always going to be the best way. However, if you've got any impairments with your learners, got some motor impairments, you know, to physical impairments or speech or hearing, there is voice activated tools as well that you can use a Jamboard. So it really is inclusive and a good inclusive tool to use. So here's another example of a similar activity to the ones I've shown you before. I could leave this on the board possibly whilst learners are working through the activity and in a time frame that I've set for them. And I can add hints onto this whilst walking around. And I have to say, not being locked to the whiteboard or to the computer in the corner of the room, and be able to walk around with my iPad and sort of adding hints to the work that we're all going through at the same time on the whiteboard. It's really nice, and it's a really good way of doing it because I can sort of keep track of what people are doing. I can maybe stand at the back of the classroom, making sure everyone's on the right tab or whatever on the laptops and so on. And I can start to slowly reveal hints as we go through it. I could ask for learners to, you know, oh, do you know how to expand a bracket? Oh, yeah, I think, you know, you need to multiply the outside by the inside, so I can put that in there straight away with a little hint, and use some of the words that they would use as well. Obviously, as a teacher, some of the vocabulary that I might use might not be overly familiar for them, so getting it in their own words and stuff like that is such a nice way of doing it. And it's a nice way of sort of showing it, rather than pre-making this resource for them and assuming this is how they might have been taught it at school or so on, or in the previous year. I can ask them there and then I can instantly edit my resources as I'm walking around the classroom. And that really is a massive bonus about getting them engaged and motivated in the lesson. They can see I'm building it for them as we're going through the lesson, and everyone can contribute to that. And then obviously you want to show those answers at the end as well. And I could add these, you can see I've added these through a text box function just to make sure that they can read it very well. My handwriting is not the best, so just to make sure that they've got the right answers on there as well. But it's not just starters activities or small based sort of question tasks that I've been sort of demonstrating. You know, I could take a part of an exam paper or a few pages of an exam paper or particular questions based on the topics that we're looking at. It could be like a Christmas maths game or anything like that. Anything that can basically be exported into an image or a PDF we can put onto there. Jamboard also offers a lot of tools within itself as well. So I've sort of been showing you how we're utilizing it, but there are actually more tools within it as well. For example, it's got quite a handy assistive drawing tool function. So as you can see on the image on the left there, my handwriting's got suddenly a lot neater. That's because I've used the assistive drawing tool, which will assume what you're writing as you're writing it. So on the right, we've got some writing by myself using the Apple Pen. Without the assistive tool, hopefully you can still read it all right. My learners seem to be able to follow along at least. But if you want to turn on the assistive tool, like I've done there on the left, it will tidy it up and make it a bit neater, especially if you're going to export it or if you're going to leave something up there. And, you know, as all teachers will know, you know, if you're using a whiteboard marker, a board marker on a whiteboard and your handwriting hasn't got very tidy or something like that, you know, it can be a bit annoying. So that is really useful. And it's instant as well. As you're writing it, it will align it and it will tidy it all up for you, which is really nice. Like I was saying earlier, though, very fortunate to have the Apple Pen. This does make it all a lot easier. For example, like I was sort of explaining earlier, I can use just my finger, or I can create a text box or whatever to write on the Jamboard. But having the Apple Pen makes everything a lot neater, especially if you're moving shapes around, like I've got there with my triangle and my trapezium. It does make that bit a lot quicker. But you can use a mouse or a finger. It still all works, even if you haven't got access to a Apple Pencil. So Jamboard has proved useful for quick time fillers as well in a lesson. So I've sort of showed you if we used it as a starter. However, if someone's got through the work really quickly, I've got a high achieving learner, or we've got through all the planned activities, it's nice to have a bank of questions on the Jamboard. So I've got a few Jamboards that I just call Bank 1, Bank 2, Bank 3, and it's just to get up there quickly. Okay, so I can just ping a question up on the board whilst I'm walking around helping learners and stuff like that. Someone said, oh, I've actually got through all the questions, Joe, rather than having to go and get a different sheet or send them to go and get a different sheet or to go on the laptop or something. I go, okay, guys, that's fine. Just ping a question like that, 20% off, £200 straight onto the whiteboard, or if they're using the laptops or whatever in the lesson, so they can sort of get a question really, really quickly. And it's just like on Google Drive, you can save a bank of these, which is really useful. You can see I've got a Pythagoras question that I've used before with my learners as well. So like I said, for classroom assessing and so on, whilst I'm walking around, I can keep doing that. But I found if you leave a learner for about 3 minutes procrastinating, they've done all the work, they're waiting for you to come over and check their work, they can lose focus, they're sort of lots of perseverance in that activity or that maths lesson for that day. So being able to give them another question instantly via Jamboard is really useful. I did mention the Apple Pencil a few times now, so I'm going to go into a bit of detail about that and its uses. So when purchasing an Apple Pencil, to sync it with your iPad device, it could not be any easier. So you've got sort of like a stopper at the end that you simply just take off. And then on your iPad, on the connecting device, so the Lightning port, you simply just put it in there and it will automatically sync. And therefore it's synced now, it's ready to go. I can charge it like that as well. And once I pull it out, it's ready to go. So it's totally synced with that iPad. So it's really useful for that. And like most things of Apple products, so easy to use and so easy to sort of sync together with other different devices. For example, Steve Jobs did once say, simplicity is a sign of greatness. And it could not be more true about syncing these two devices together and using them as well. Is very, very straightforward. Personally, I found Jamboard and other sketching software much better to use with an Apple Pencil. So neatness was the main issue when I tried it without a stylus. So just doing it by hand or by mouse, it was quite difficult to get things in line and to write and so on. But those issues were dealt with quite quickly with the Apple Pencil. So I've gone through a lot of looking at Jamboard and using the iPad from a teaching perspective. So I'm just going to now go into a bit of detail about from a learning perspective as well. So unlike most maths work that can be produced on a computer, it's nice that Jamboard allows learners to sketch. So we've been using lots of Google Docs and like a Microsoft Word exam that learners could do. There's nowhere to do the working out. There's nowhere to write down or scribble in the corner. You're working out as you're going through it, and people need that when they're doing maths work. You can do a lot. Mental arithmetic, can be done a lot in your head, but it does really help when you can write it out. So that's one good thing that Jamboard is really good for like a sketching device. As you can see, what I've got presented at the moment. You can't do that stuff in your head. So it's nice if people are bound and having to work on a computer, like remote learning, very useful for that. So we're undertaking a research project at the college at the moment, and its focus is on digital learning in regards to maths. And one of the main learner comments that we found was that when they're completing digital work, learners often felt like they had nowhere to complete their working out, or at least satisfactory to complete their working out. So Jamboard does provide that option and that alternative that we have utilized quite a lot over the course of the pandemic and working remotely. Some of those watching might say, why do you just use a bit of paper? That's obviously fine to use. But when we talk about evidence in work and, a learner wanting to sort of share that with their teacher, they could take a photo of that scrap bit of work or whatever. But obviously much better to have it on a Jamboard that they can share with us very, very quickly and very easily as well. Like I mentioned before, I can share formulas with learners. These can be exported into presentations with ease. They could be left on an interactive whiteboard in a classroom or set on Google Classroom for learners to look at when they get to that particular part in the lesson, or even emailed directly as well. So I can have these pre-made, or I could just make them on the spot in the lesson as well, like the one I've got presented at the moment, and that can be shared with my learners really quickly. So like I said before, when you're working on a whiteboard, you've got one whiteboard to work on. You can write on there, you can leave hints on there and stuff like that. Then you run out of room. Beauty with a Jamboard is I can just slide to the next jam and then slide back when we need to go back to sort of plenary that activity later on in the lesson. We tried activities where learners write hints to one another using Jamboard. So that was experimental and mixed results, but generally it did work really well. So whenever we encourage learners, to peer teach or anything like that, we're always going to jump at that chance because that is vital to learners' progression. So having learners explain the maths to one another with words and gestures popular to them that they would understand, that they would use, can only be a beneficial thing to do. So the teacher will monitor this, obviously, to make sure that the advice they're giving to each other is correct and it's not wrong, although we will ignore a bit of bad spelling possibly if the sort of main point for their maths is there. So as you can see on that example I've got presented at the moment, so we had some questions that we assigned to learners, and then they could then give hints to each other on how to do the maths for it, which did work pretty well. So try to do it without, we said, like, don't give the answer to it, just give a hint on how to do it, and try and use words as well, which did obviously done pretty well there. And it's a really good activity. Highly recommend giving an activity like that a go with your learners. We also had a lot of fun making Jamboards competitive. So I quite like making competitive things in my lessons, to get learners really motivated and engaged then. So I'd assign maybe 10 questions and see how quickly they can answer those questions to see who's first to answer all of them correctly. So I present how it's going whilst the learners are doing it. I might ping some up of the questions onto the board whilst it's going on. Someone's doing particularly well, I might have presented on there. maybe they're working out for a question that I think most learners would have got through by then. But it's good to get that sort of competitiveness when you're using something like Jamboard, because obviously things can get very lethargic using technology. So it's good to add that element in there as well, especially when we were working remotely, to get people actually involved a bit more. You can make this inclusive. Even learners who are struggling or quite slow working, can take the time with it. You don't have to show their work onto the board if they haven't done very well in that activity. Okay. So the possibilities of Jamboard are limitless, and a teacher can provide their own spin on any of the things that I've shown today and to suit your learners, your environment that you have created. So that's it for Jamboard. I'm now going to show you another tool that we've recently started to look at the college. So it's another maths-based website. So it's not through Google. And we've been using it and been testing out at the college now for a few weeks. It's called Math Whiteboard. So it is an American-based website that is similar to Jamboard in terms of the presentation elements. However, it's especially designed for maths, unlike Jamboard, which is designed for anything to present really. But this Math Whiteboard is designed especially for using maths. So it contains many more numeracy-related functions. As you can see there, I've started to create. I've got some linear graphs. You can create a quadratic graph very, very quickly. Integers and inequalities as well, all with a swipe of the mouse, is all Apple Pencil and so on. And it does pick up on the maths that you're using, the numbers that you're using very, very quickly, very easily. And it also gives you answers as well, which is really useful if you're comparing decimals, fractions, and percentages. For example, if I put 60% and then I put 3/5, it would color them both the same color. Knowing that those are equal to one another might color them both green, and then if I put another fraction on there, a quarter, it would give that a different color. So it's good for all levels of maths ability, for those who are A level or doing higher GCSE, all the way down to sort of key stages sort of earlier on in the school experience as well. It's free to use, it requires no sign up in order to get creating and to having a go on it. So please do give it a try and see how you get on with it. Like I said, with both these things, it's always best to have a go yourself, have a play and sort of see how you get on with it. So staff from the college have met a representative from this company called Donald, who was incredibly helpful. Highly recommend getting in touch with him, seeing if you can sort of get a Zoom meeting with Donald and co at Math Whiteboard, because we've had a great experience with it and we're looking forward to adapting it a bit more next year and adopting it into sort of our curriculum. So that's everything I wanted to go through with you today. I hope you found it useful, even if it's just an element of it, just a part, just an idea or whatever. Please do get in touch if you've got any questions and you want to collaborate possibly, or you've got some advice you think that that I could do with, that I could maybe adapt into how we use Jamboard and so on. It doesn't matter how much we know already, we can always learn more from one another. So I've got my email address there. So it's joe.williams@bcot.ac.uk. I'm going to pass you over to my colleague Scott now, who's going to talk to you about the benefits of becoming an Apple teacher. So thank you for listening today and take care. All right, bye.
Thank you, Joe. That's fantastic. Thank you. You're good, you are. You're really good at your job, my friend. That was wonderful. That was so good. Thank you. In terms of using different creative technologies in maths, Joe, Sophie, Tom, Dan, Caroline and the team are exemplary and an absolute pleasure to work with. So yeah, it'd be lovely to connect our wonderful maths team with your wonderful maths team if you're at a college. As you can see from the message on the screen there, we can offer free peer-to-peer, teacher-to-teacher support, which means that we can be working alongside you to share best practice and to learn alongside you. As Joe rightly says, we're not experts, we're just experienced really in terms of using these tools, and we're lucky to have bosses that like us taking risks and trying things, which is lovely. So to become an Apple teacher then, this is something we recommend actually. This is something that I think is really useful and powerful, particularly if you've got some Apple technology. We haven't got much, by the way. We've only got a bank of iPads and some Macs. We've got a lot of PCs and Chrome devices. We've got a mixed economy at the college, but for those of us that are using Apple technologies, and that will only increase over the next few years, I suppose, becoming an Apple teacher was really useful to get us used to the digital pencil case, as it were. Through these slides, Joe, if you could go relatively quick, it'd be great. It makes us loads of slides here. I've got
Okay, cool.
go overboard. So as you can see, I've got an overview here of like a time-lapse effect we're going to create for you by clicking forward on the slides. And when you go to the Apple Teacher site, you can sign in with your email address, your school, college email, and you can access all these wonderful books from Apple Books, and you can actually go through and learn about GarageBand and Pages and different Apple-based tools, and go through a gamified multiple choice quiz to test your understanding and knowledge. Satisfying. You get instant feedback, and you get a book to actually go through and understand on your iPad to read through, or on your device if you're not using an iPad, to understand how best to use tools such as iMovie and Numbers, for example, another good maths related Apple tool. Really, really powerful, really useful. It's nice to do it with a sparring partner we found, a fellow teacher. So if you want to do it alongside us or some of our teachers, get in touch and we'll be happy to go through the Apple Teacher program with you. The books are completely free. You can go through them and learn the basics in these interactive, appropriately enough from Apple, beautifully designed pages that illustrate how to best use these different tools. So the book's laid out, as you can see, in quite a nice, easy to understand manner, followed by a quiz to earn a badge for each particular tool. And then when you get enough badges, sure enough, you're an Apple teacher, which is satisfying to say. So it makes you part of a community as well, of people who can share wonderful practice in chat groups and conferences and live events soon enough as well. Okay, fantastic. We've got some more upcoming events, and it's going to be live events from September. And we'll be doing sessions on, as you can see, video for teaching and learning, but also on accessibility, helping people who learn differently. On digital well-being, a big topic for us at the college in 21-22, and also looking at topics such as Swift playgrounds and learning how to code as well. That's a wonderful session led by Umera from our team. Okay, so that brings to a conclusion this 4th of 4 Apple Regional Training Centre events. Joe, thank you very much, my friend.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, please get in touch with us if you need help with anything at all. We are here to help you as part of the EdTech Demonstrator Programme, but also as an Apple Regional Training Centre. Okay, get in touch if you need anything at all. Thank you very much.